If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I would take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Rick. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The first item on the agenda is Schultzy's Restaurant Group LLC.
Mayor, I'll handle the background information
Okay,
on this one, and I believe we've got some representatives from the business that are here. I see a couple that I recognize. Is it just the two of you? Okay. Let me give you a little bit of background, is that we've received a new liquor license application for both an on-sale intoxicating liquor license, a Sunday liquor license, and an off-sale liquor license from Owen Schultz, Adam Schultz, and Jonathan Schultz, with a group known as Schultzy's Restaurant Group LLC, to be doing business as the 1319 Woodfire Tavern. They're going to be located at what is known as the current Checker Sports Bar. They're proposing that this liquor license and operation of the business be eligible to become operative at or about August 2nd. Is that still the goal? Yes. The license period would begin from August 2nd and would expire next March 31st in accordance with city requirements. Under our city code, we're required to hold a public hearing on the issuance of a new license to provide for the opportunity for the public to comment either both for or against the issuance of the licenses. All of the fees have been paid, the appropriate insurance has been provided, all property taxes and utility bills are current at this time. You've also got in your packet a background memo from Police Chief Jim Garais in regards to his review of the statutory requirements, and he's recommending that there are no disqualifiers preventing the applicant from being granted a license. The only conditions that I'd recommend be attached to your approval tonight is that the licensed premises would include the first floor of the building at 125 Main Street East, and that the Sunday liquor license not be issued until the liquor establishment not be allowed to open on Sunday until a copy of the business's health license from Scott County is provided to the city. And I don't know if you have that as of yet, or that's still in the process.
No, I would need to know what that means.
Again, in their work with Scott County on the review of
Some food in order to be open on Sunday, food license.
Yeah, okay, that's all. So that's all in the works.
I think the state of Minnesota does it for Scott County.
Yeah, okay.
And so it would be the state that would do the review and the approval from the health license perspective.
Okay. So just to be clear, we would not be able to open on Sundays until we're serving food, correct?
You could, as soon as you get your health license approval from the state, then you're eligible to go.
Got it.
And we've been working with Karen, the health inspector, all of it, so.
So,
She sent us a bunch of paperwork to fill out, so that's probably what's in that paperwork that we just got from her today.
once they do that final inspection and give you the okay, that's all we need is proof of that.
Okay.
So it's nothing intended to be anything additional that we're expecting of you. It's what you're already currently working on. We just need proof of the final walkthrough. So following my introduction, Mayor, it's appropriate for you to open up the public hearing and take any public comment. Whether the applicant wants to come to the podium and provide any additional information would be up to them, or any other residents or citizens that might be here to comment on the license.
okay. With that being, I'll open the public hearing. Does anybody want to comment on this approval of the issuance of liquor license? Hearing or seeing none, I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, Maggie and then Rick. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Would somebody be willing to offer the resolution?
No, your first action
sorry.
would be under item B, which would be approval
Approval,
of the
yes.
3 licenses.
I guess that's what I meant. Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the 3 licenses. That being the on-sale intoxicating liquor license, the Sunday liquor license, and off-sale intoxicating liquor license for Schultzy's Restaurant Group LLC, pending the Sunday liquor license of receiving the health license from Scott County.
Second.
Okay, there is a motion by Maggie, seconded by Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, we're to item C.
What we have there is a lawful gambling premises permit application LG 214 for German Days Inc. At Schultzy's Restaurant Group. What they've submitted is essentially to do the same thing that they're currently doing with Checkers, which is a premises permit to conduct lawful gambling, paper and electronic pull tabs, bar bingo, electronic link bingo, paddle wheel tip boards. The premises permit application is required to be approved per the state statute before the Gambling Control Board will issue a premises permit for this location with this new business. We included in your memorandum where we have other existing gambling permits, but everything is in order for operations to begin, and we'd recommend approval of the LG 214 application.
Okay, does anybody want to offer the motion, or the resolution 21070601 for approval?
So moved.
I'll second.
Sean and Maggie, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, now we're to Main Street Reconstruction update.
Yeah, hello, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm assuming you can hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay, also, I am gonna want to share my screen, so if I could do that, as I get into discussion on update.
I'll give that to you in a second, Chris.
Okay. Well, first I'll start out by saying, things are going well. Project is still on schedule or even maybe ahead of schedule. There wasn't much work that, of course, occurred today because of the rain. Let's see, go to share right here.
I heard somebody try driving down Main Street, trying it out today. An older lady.
Yeah, there's a few of those that happen. So, so the work that happened today was pretty much kind of housekeeping items. They did do some removals. They've done removals pretty much up east as far as about the funeral home. They plan to take removals up to Sunset Avenue, which will basically leave it about a half a block left before they get to the end of the project, which is 7th Avenue Southeast with removals. And that's so they can prepare, obviously, to begin doing utility work and things like that. Utility work has been completed at this point up to about Pershing or the entrance to Memorial Park. So in essence, they really have about 3 blocks of utility work to go. There's a good chance that by the end of this month, all the utility work, the sanitary sewer, water main, and storm sewer work should be complete or close to complete to the east end of the job. And at that point, it's basically a roadway and surface improvements that will be taking place. They've been prepping for sidewalk, if you've seen the area, but they haven't poured any yet. Had not been a rainy forecast today, they would have actually started the flat work, sidewalk work today. They are just starting the roundabout at First Avenue. So they've done some of the first curb work, they've staked, and they're getting ready to start pouring that. And it'll be in multiple pours because of just how it has to fit together and some colored concrete, etc. What I did want to point out is, and if you can, you'll see the map is next week. July 15th, the contractor is scheduled to do a mill and overlay on, at the intersection of 21 and 19, going up the hill past Quick Trip up to 5th Avenue. This was actually supposed to happen last fall, but as the weather turned sour and cold early, it was decided it was in everybody's best interest to wait until this season. This mill and overlay and the detour that's going to go with it has been actually a very complicated mess, for lack of a better term. So the roadway, the intersection has to be paved at the intersection where there's not concrete, it's blacktop. It'll get paved up to 5th Avenue. So this whole stretch will be closed. Right now it is planned to be scheduled to be closed one day, beginning early and opened up to traffic by the end of the day. What I do want to point out is the detour plan that is to go into place. Obviously, we have the project detour that takes people around the downtown area. But to close that intersection, we're going to have a couple things happening. Eastbound traffic on 19 will be diverted north onto 11th Avenue and onto 6th Street, and then diverted either north or south from there. The north-south traffic coming down on 21 that's going to go westbound on 19 will be diverted on 6th Street to 11th Avenue and then out. The challenge is the traffic that has to go north-south on the 21 alignment. That traffic will actually be diverted onto 2nd Street Northwest by Casey's, along the vacant lot there between on 2nd Avenue, between the vacant lot and Wells Fargo. And they'll actually divert it back onto 2nd Avenue Southwest and onto 5th Avenue or 5th Street over to the highway. Northbound traffic will actually come onto the project. They'll take the slip ramp onto Main Street. They'll be turned north onto 2nd Avenue by Wells Fargo and onto 2nd Street over to 21 over by Casey's and back north again. This was quite the struggle on where else what the other options were, and there really wasn't any options that were feasible. These are all major roads. The roads are equipped to handle traffic, truck traffic. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit of an inconvenience for one day. Again, barring unless there's some weather issues that occur during that day of paving. We are going to try to notify. So the one key thing I want to point out is the contractor has proposed to begin milling operations at 4 a.m. This area is in a business commercial district, and so they technically can do that work. Our biggest concern is there's some residential properties that are very close or right up to that point. And so we're going to reach out to those, everybody within a block of that 5th Avenue intersection and let them know of the pending work on to begin at 4 a.m. If the contractor, they claim if they don't get started by that time, there's a good chance this won't get completed in one day, and this therefore we go into a second day. And we figured the inconvenience outweighed the outweighed the making sure that this gets done in a day. So I certainly want to get the word out so people understand that. There'll be advanced warning. I think the day or days in advance of this closure, notifying folks that this intersection will be closed to traffic. Obviously, there'll be access to all the localized areas, but just not through traffic at that intersection. Any questions?
What is the day? I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry. July 15th, Thursday, July 15th. Thank you for asking.
Chris, can't they start the mill and overlay closer to the intersection before they get anywhere near the houses?
Yeah.
Then it might be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've asked that they do that, and they will do it, but the reality is within an hour, they'll probably, before 6 a.m. for sure, they'll be up at that Fifth Avenue intersection.
Oh, okay.
So it won't take long.
Chris, this is Mike speaking, that I was not at the meeting with the contractor last week in preparations for this. As you talk about notifying the residential properties, is there also an intent that we make sure we communicate with the businesses located in that intersection as well?
Yes, the main business impacted, well, I guess, will be Quick Trip and Speedway, but again, access, they'll have complete access, but it'll be from the north, where the traffic will have to come around from Second Street back south again to get to them. So they'll be, certainly won't have the drive-by traffic, but if somebody's trying to get there, they won't have any issues getting there.
Famous last words.
Chris, would you be doing your outreach to those residential properties very soon, or the sooner the better?
Yeah, the hope is to get something out in the next couple days.
Okay, thank you.
And it may be handouts, and we may actually try mailing as well, but certainly, at a minimum, we'll do door knocking and handouts.
Okay. Anything else?
Not on my end.
Okay.
Thanks.
Does council have any questions for Mr. Abbott? All right, thanks, Chris.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, have a good night.
You too, thanks.
All right, agenda item number 3 is the discussion of building repair at 102 East Main Street. Ken, and, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick overview and then I'll have City Attorney Scott Riggs follow up at the conclusion of my short narrative here. As the City Council's aware, we have been working with one of the owners of the 102 East Main Street building, Randy Kubish in particular, on a solution to a structural concern related to the west wall of the building and the associated components with that west wall. As you recall, dating back to April 9th, 2021, our building official did post that building as unsafe and not to be occupied. Most recently, in order to come to a resolution on the repairs, City Attorney and myself did meet with Mr. Kubish on June 30th and indicated that at the council meeting tonight, we would have action on the table for consideration to bring the matter to a conclusion, which really what we're looking for is a repair of the building to a safe condition. At the meeting on the 30th, Mr. Kubish did provide a plan for repair of the building, which we did forward to both our building official and structural engineer that day, and within a day we had preliminary review comments back. At the time of writing the memo, and actually today I had followed up with our structural engineer, Mr. Hemstad of SEH, and did not hear back if they had a definitive conclusion on the final repair plan, and did not also have a start date or end date for the repair work. Again, so we may have an update on that from Mr. Kubish here tonight, but at the time of writing this and earlier today, I did not have that information to provide to you. One other thing to note that, again, while we do believe the building owner is progressing towards repair, we did want to get documentation in writing, and we felt that was necessary at this time. So Scott Riggs' office, specifically Dave Anderson and Scott Riggs, put together the item that's on the table for you tonight, which is titled the resolution ordering the abatement of a hazardous building located at PID 23-480-0130. And basically what the resolution provides for, and I'll have Scott go in more of the detail here for you, but it does specifically have the city council determine the building hazardous. Now that was already done by our building official, but this is a different action for statutory purposes in what we're trying to get the conclusion of the building repaired here tonight. And it also authorizes staff to move forward with either serving a lawsuit or entering into an agreement or both to reach resolution on the building concerns. So I think with that, I'll probably turn it over to Scott if you have anything to add, more detail to that resolution and the two different documents that are really the action items that come out of that resolution that could be possible.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Yeah, and Ken explained it pretty well, but you really have a hybrid approach here. We have both an order that would require the abatement be done. There's a statutory process for that. There's timing that occurs there. Actions would have to occur both within 20 days, either an answer to that or action being taken by 30 days from the date that order would be served out. The other item that's there is a restoration agreement, which is the alternative approach where you're working with the property owner, which is what's been going on for quite some time. However, the problem becomes we've got a declaration of a hazardous building at this point in time. That has been provided by a couple different engineers, not only ours, but the owner's engineer has said there's things that have to be fixed. Everybody knows what happened down in Florida, so that's a very heightened standard for cities right now looking at building type issues. The state building code does require that if a building is hazardous, the city shall take action and do something. That's why staff and I, myself, have said we should have something before the council. It is a hybrid approach. It is not something that automatically puts both these into play. It does give staff the latitude to continue to work with the owners, come up with a solution, hopefully the restoration agreement, because that is the simplest way when both parties are working together, but it does protect the city. And it shows that the city is undertaking what statutorily has to be done here. Beyond that, it's very straightforward. These are both documents the city has utilized in the past. Many cities use them. They're very standardized agreements and order and resolution. So nothing is out of the ordinary there, but it does give the latitude. It does allow the city to take that step. Really what it does is it puts a bookend timing on this, and it says, without putting a date in there, that we will be moving forward at some point in time. And the city, unfortunately, under the statute does have to, because we will incur liability if we don't. And all the citizens will incur liability. And when you've got a situation where you've got right-of-way or sidewalks closed, that's typically where we try to get an agreement in place as soon as possible to protect everybody, to show everybody, and particularly the insurance companies, that something's happening here. So that's all you're doing tonight. It's not automatic that we start serving out orders and filing things in the court. There's a lot of other steps that would have to occur. We'd have to look at title. We'd have to look and see if we've gotten a solution here. But everything would be queued up and could be queued up very quickly. And what I mean by that is within a week to 10 days, you could do that if the building official says, no, we need to move forward. So that's all you're doing tonight, nothing beyond that.
Okay, does the council have any questions?
Scott, on the resolution, the bottom of the page, last paragraph, it talks about communicating its request to the owners. Have the requests been in writing to the owners?
I'll defer to Ken on that.
Or were you referring to city inspectors documented?
Yeah, that's really what it is. I mean, there's clearly been conversations going on and off between staff as well as engineers regarding this. So there's been a lot of movement back and forth like that. What we would do is we'd have to serve everything out. So you'd get official notice at that point in time. All the due process for this type of situation follows this council's action tonight. So really, anything we've undertaken to this point in time has been sort of kind of a cordial dance before we actually take an official action here. So the owners would have certain due process rights, could file an answer if you in fact, and staff selects to go down the enforcement route beyond an agreement. So really, you know, to answer your question, Bruce, there has been communications going back and forth. Now, whether or not they're in writing, I don't know, but there certainly have been engineers' reports that are in writing specifically stating the issues that are occurring here.
That's what I was wondering, if we just have these reports and we just hand them over, or do we actually, did the city of New Prague actually make a written request of some action to be taken?
I don't know if we've made a written request, have we?
No, not any written requests other than an email and then phone calls, discussions with the engineers, that type of thing.
Anybody else? Otherwise, does anybody want to speak from the audience? Randy, I'm just going to ask you to state your name. Come on up. State your name and your address and then go for it.
Randy Kubish, 1244 Monroe Street, Shakopee, Minnesota. I wanted to come to the meeting tonight to talk about the subject and talk about what I know about it and how the order of which things were taken. So once SM Henches had got awarded to do the contract of Main Street, he had gone through, which they are supposed to, their due diligence to look at all of the buildings. And he had, along with Steve that works with me, went through all of the buildings. And they noted that two of the buildings, they were subject to some concern. One of them was the old Blade Oath building, had a fascia that was tipping out. So we had to take that brick fascia out and replace it, which we did. And then also they were concerned about the bowing out of the side of the building that we're talking about. My sister Kim and I own the building, and we bought the building in 1994. And at that time, the wall was bowing out. So I asked Marty Simon, who was the son of who we were buying the property from. He ran Simon's Grocery, and he had said that since he's been a little boy, that wall has been bowing out. And that would have been another 50 years of history. So that would have been 80 years of history, the time that I've owned it and the time that Marty was aware of the property. So it never was concerning to us because, it's been that way for so long. During the review of the building, the only defects that they found structurally outside of the bowing of the building is 2 cracked boards, and which are part of the reports that they've taken pictures of. So we feel strongly that the building hadn't been moving and wasn't going to move during the construction process. But SM Henches said, well, we have an engineer, a structural engineer that we'd recommend have come take a look at the building. So we agreed to have that happen, and a gentleman named Corey Swickla with Wenzel Engineering came and looked at the building. And he viewed it, I think it was the early part of December. He wrote a letter in January, and in that letter, it specifically said, some words that are important to read out loud. So this is his report, and the report is dated. It's Wenzel Engineering, and your office has it, and it's dated January 14th. And then it goes to the recommendation paragraph. And it says, it is our opinion that the bowed condition on the west wall does not pose an intimate structural safety concern. So that is in the report. So then he also said that if you wanted to have a general contractor view it or talk to you about it, you could consider some ties internally. The east portion of the building had ties in it, and the west portion did not because it was an open ceiling. But there's a ton of lumber up in that roof, and so we had gone ahead and hired somebody to do the brick fascia, Chateau Brick and Repair, and they also were going to put a number of bands in this building. And they were scheduled to do it this spring. So the next conversation that I had about this is with Andy Bach with SM Henches. He had said that he's going to call a meeting that this, we're concerned about this building. And that meeting notification came out to me at 8:11 on a Thursday evening for a 10 o'clock meeting in the morning. And I was already scheduled, so Steve had gone to the meeting. It was a Zoom meeting. And then after that Zoom meeting, Steve urged him to come out and take a look at the building, and then they eventually did. And shortly after that meeting, they told Steve that we got to shut down the building. Corey's changing his story on what he feels the building needs. And so we're gonna take action on closing the building. So by 3 o'clock that day, it was stickers were on the doors, and by 4 o'clock, it was on the city's Facebook page saying the building's been shut down and the people were out of business. And that immediately started the phone calls to Jim Reeder at Downtown Sound, and Christina cried and cried and cried, the owner of the consignment lodge. So those things were very effective, you know, in telling everyone out in the public that Randy and Lisa Kubish, along with whoever the building owners are slumlords and are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. That the owners of the businesses should be going after them. That the business owners are going to be now needing to find different spaces to move to and so forth. So that evening on April 9th, my wife and I had dinner plans at Stonebrook, and it just happened to be with Leroy Chard, who did Central Avenue, and I talked to him about the subject. And then also we seen the guy that was gonna do the repair, Chip Menke, and I says, you know, if you could get out there next week, he says, well, I'm not gonna go out to the building now and do anything, you know, because we're gonna have to have someone tell me what I need to do now. So we went down the next step, and we asked this Corey, now that you say the building is in such dire need, what do you recommend? And he came up with a plan that gave us 4 10-foot walls that come into the space on each side of the building. They called them shear walls, and to go from the foundation all the way up to the rafters and tie the building together. And I submitted that to the city and to some others, and to ourselves, it just wasn't feasible to have that. That would just destroy the building. You know, all those walls interfering with the openness of the building. So I says, I don't know what to think of this. So the next thing that we had done is asked him if he can come up with some other ideas. But then in the meantime, I went to talk to Chad, and I said, Chad, you know, can't I just go in the building and start adding some lumber and these ties and get it up and running? And he says, well, I can't let you do anything to the building until we have a structural engineer say so. And I says, well, okay, I understand. So then I just kind of left frustrated. And then I had come back a different day, and I was talking to Ken about it. And then I said, Ken, what did the city's structural engineer say when he was in the building? Because I seen Mike's name on all of the emails and so forth of these meetings. And then Ken said, well, Mike actually physically hasn't seen the building. And I says, well, how could he not seen the building? You know, before April 9th, he hadn't seen the building. So then I had, at that time, the whole building was shut down. And I had asked him, you know, we should get him in to see the building then. And he said the same thing. And then we went ahead on May 17th. Mike went and looked at the building. And then the very next day, he opened up the east end of the building. You know, so Jim Reeder can now be opened. And then Jim Reeder calls me and says, what happened? What changed in the building? And I said, I ain't done a thing to the building. He goes, well, what changed? Why am I open now and I couldn't be opened on the 9th of April, and I've been closed a month and, you know, 5 days. I said, I don't know, you gotta call the city, you have to find it out from them. You know, I don't know why they closed the building down without having a structural engineer look at it first. And then what I started to realize during this whole process is it was all about getting SM Hench's liability off the hook, so they wouldn't have to worry about if the building did fall down, was SM Hench's liable for it? And that's really what it boils down to, is everybody has been working towards keeping them satisfied. So along this process, naturally I've taken a bunch of pictures, but this is the building. And you can see there's a blue container in front of the building and a blue container on the side of the building.
Yes.
This was the day the building was closed. And, this is a day in May.
I can't see the difference, Randy.
Yep, there's
The
no
light's not
difference.
good.
There's still the blue containers there, except there's now guys standing in front of it.
Blue
So-
containers of what, please?
What's that?
Blue containers of what?
Okay, there's a blue container in front of the building.
Yep.
That's carrying all of SM Henches's tools. So that means that their men go to and from it every day. And here's,
Excuse me, can I make a correction, please? This is Chris.
okay,
The blue containers are actually vibration monitoring equipment. Is what those are.
Oh,
okay, do you have to go to and from them? And I noticed them all the way around town.
Yeah, they're located in other locations where we had to do vibration monitoring, and
Are
they-
those
they
buildings
placed
shut
that-
down?
They were part of the requirement for the historic properties. There's a number of properties. For example, the nearest one to there is the Rinda Hardware property. That one also had to have vibration monitoring as part of the requirement dealing with the state historical.
Okay, well then, I can get to some other things then. He had asked that there be crack monitors put in the building. And you obviously won't be able to see this. But the crack monitors during the whole time that that building has been monitored showed zero movement. The crack monitors, they went to and from them twice a day during the time that they were working in front of the building. And the crack monitors showed no movement. And, you know, there's naturally been excavators in front of it. And there's been a fair amount of activity in front of the building, you know, that would, you know, move, you know, crack monitors. And, the thing that's probably the most telling is that the employees, for SM Henches and MnDOT, you know, had never been afraid of being in front of the building. And then, when Mike went up on the roof with me, you know, we were both up on the roof, and he had commented the same as I did, boy, this is really a solid building. You know, this is the last step that we've made. And, there's, you know, this is, this is the lumber that's on a 40-pound roof. You know, this was a building that we had just built. And, the lumber inside of the attic of, the building that we're talking about is definitely extreme. And, and they were talking about in one of the reports that there wasn't any X bracing in the rafters, and this one shows that there's X bracing in the rafters. And from what I understand, the way that the roof is put together is it becomes a cap, you know, on the block walls to hold in the block walls and not to put pressure on pushing them outward. When there's pressure put on it, it actually shrinks the building sides. So, but the other thing that had happened along the way here is Corey, the gentleman that did the structural engineering, he had changed his report to not have the shear walls anymore, to just get back to having bands up in the roof area, in the truss area. And that happened shortly after they figured out that they have to have something to get done here. before Dozinki days, so we can open up the side street and so forth. Because the report that was done by Mike from SEH, the city structural engineer, said that the street can't open until the work is done in the building. So what our plan is to try to get to the minimum amount that's needed to get the work done, and but still have the maximum amount of strength that we need to have the building get shored up. But the bigger question is how come the building got shut down to begin with, and how come our businesses had to exit the building? And I think it all could have been avoided if it was handled differently. And nobody in this room would wanted to have this happen to themselves.
Correct.
Yeah, and I went to a card party the following Friday after this, and somebody from town here that I know real well looked across from me while we were playing cards. He said, I thought you took better care of your stuff. You know, and I says, what do you mean by that? And then he just laid into me about it. So anyway, I guess that's the side of the story I want to be talking to you about, so.
Okay. You looked at this agreement, Randy?
Yeah, I won't be signing any agreement, and if somebody puts a lawsuit against my sister and I, then we'll defend ourselves.
Okay.
And we want to try to work with this civilly and try to get it accomplished quickly. Mike is capable of working out something structurally with Corey, and as soon as we get something back on our desk, we're gonna get a contractor hired and get him up there.
Okay.
But I certainly would not put a lawsuit against our names. And we'll get the work done timely, and we just need support on the city side to get a permit or a structural plan put together. And we're quite satisfied, close to satisfied with what's on the table now.
Would you be willing to put some sort of a time limit to accomplish the repairs?
Would you be willing to reimburse all of our tenants' damages?
I'm just asking it.
I'm
One
just
thing.
asking too.
Yeah, I don't think one thing has to do with the other. I was just wondering if, because there seems to be some level of urgency brought to us at this point.
The urgency is because you want to open for Dozinki days, but nobody felt that urgency on April 9th when they closed the building. You know, very little thought went into closing the building, and it takes a lot of thought to go back into reopening it. And it got closed in the instant. 8:11 p.m. on a Thursday, and then having it closed by 3 p.m. the next day, and not even allowing me to be at any meeting. I tried to get to the meetings. By the time I got down here, it was 3:30, they were done.
Yeah.
I couldn't make it. I'm in business. People rely on me to be where I need to be, and I couldn't make it. And then they shut the building down without me being there. That's crazy. And I'm not signing any paperwork that's putting any of our family at risk, okay? And as far as the timeline, we have people that are waiting for closings for 1.5 years. So there's construction deadlines that can't be met. So we're gonna do the best we can, and we have a crew of people that can get it done if we can get a plan put together.
Okay,
You know, that's all I can say about it.
okay, thank you.
And then I'll also be petitioning the city to make whole the tenants that were in that building that got the shutdown. I think that's a bigger question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, any other comments?
Scott, what's the liability to the city if we don't move forward? You had mentioned there's some statutory
Yeah.
Adherence.
Yeah, the building code requires that the city take action and shall remedy this. So, can you buy more time? You've gone 3 months since it was closed at this point in time. Typically that you have something in place far before that time frame. Most of these move forward in 30 days. We're 90 days out from that right now. Staff has been working. I get it that Randy can't promise dates. We tried to build that into the agreement to say we at least are all working towards that, and we have something in writing that shows the public, shows inspectors that we're doing what we're trying to do, along with Randy and his folks doing what they're supposed to do. I can't tell you, and I don't think staff can tell you that you should not go forward with a resolution tonight. There's still time that can be built into that with staff working with Randy. But the reality is, yes, you need to come up with a time frame here. That's what the state law requires here.
And what action could the state take if that didn't happen?
Well, I mean, somebody else can come in, you have taxpayers that can allege the city's not doing what's necessary if somebody's injured. And again, you know, Chris can explain what much better, Chris Cavett, what's going on with the project. I know it's been reconfigured and the contractor has done certain steps. Unfortunately, under the contract, the city has an obligation towards the contractor to make sure the site is safe as well. So if something does happen, we have liability not only for public, but also for contractors at this point.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody want to offer the resolution?
It's a tough call.
I'll offer the resolution 21070602. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to make a comment.
Sure.
I'm going to support the resolution just because I feel that we're in a difficult spot as far as representing the citizens of New Prague. And that's how I'm looking at it when I'm voting to support it. But by no means or by no regards is it a reflection on the owners, property owners, and certainly not on you, Randy, because I know you to be a very solid business person and property owner, and by no means a slumlord or any reflection on you. So I think there's a greater sense of urgency in my mind because it's already been deemed a hazardous building. Regardless of the circumstances of how it got deemed that, it is what it is that now, and that's why I feel we have to take an action. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Bruce, and I stand behind what Bruce says as well. I know, Randy, I've worked with you on our Main Street Construction Committee, so I feel some of the comments that were brought up by the citizens of New Prague were unfortunate and uncalled for. But I too am concerned from a statutory perspective that if we don't take action, we are not in compliance with state statutes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the 2020 James Metzen Mighty Ducks Grant Program Agreement with Minnesota Amateur Sports Commission.
Let me give a little bit of background, and then you can hear some other final words from Kevin Cassidy, the manager at the Community Center Association facility. But he was successful in the application that we submitted with your prior approval, and we've been notified that we've been awarded a grant in the amount of $17,500, which is 50% of the estimated project cost to undertake the installation of the indirect R22 replacement at the facility. We now have to approve the enclosed grant agreement, which is called an N grant with the Minnesota Amateur Sports Commission to move forward. The New Prague Area Community Center Association has their 50% match. They'll have to pay for the whole project up front, and then we'll have to submit for reimbursement for 50% of that to be able to come back. Kevin's in attendance tonight to maybe come forward and talk a little bit about, after we get the grant agreement approved tonight and then sent in, they can't begin any work until it's executed by the state, which is normal requirements with most of the state grants. You can't start anything until the grant agreement is completed. But maybe, Kevin, if you want to come up and just briefly talk about the timeline and exactly what's going to be replaced and what do you see as the schedule here?
Good evening.
Good evening, Kevin Cassidy, General Manager of the New Prague Ice Arena, New Prague Area Community Center Association. So, yeah, we were awarded the grant. Great news for us. We get to move forward with things. We're tentatively, I spoke to the subcontractor, we're tentatively looking at the beginning of August, middle of August, to really do the project, and then first ice time is usually the day after Labor Day. So it'll work out nicely for us to kind of stage it out and then avoid any demand charges for us in July if we get going a little too early. So the way they worked out the grant, as far as timing, it works really nicely for the facility to start up the facility optimally, safely, and have new refrigerant in. The new refrigerant we're moving to is considered the refrigerant of the future. They're using it at the Olympics. The NHL facilities are using it now. So this is going to set up the facility for long-term success. And you know, as mentioned before, it's not on any EPA phase-out list, which is huge for us. And I spoke to the subcontractor about a week or two ago, and refrigerant prices doubled in a matter of a day, except for 449A, which is what we're moving to. So just continually looking at using that facility and putting things in that will help our bottom line and keep moving forward.
Okay. So you have enough money to cover the cost?
Yeah, we moved 35,000 to our savings account.
Great.
So it's, and provided in the packet. So we have enough to cover the full cost of the project and then be reimbursed afterwards.
Okay.
So, and even if there is some refrigerant price change, we have some insulation there too.
Okay.
With the uncertainty, but I'm not too concerned. It's a new refrigerant. Everyone's pushing to it, and it's going to be on the market for a really long time. So.
Cool.
Thanks, Kevin.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good luck. I would take a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Rick, seconded by Maggie. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, general obligation bond issues for 2021. And I would assume you're Ms. Heaton? Hi.
I'll just go ahead and introduce, this is Terry Heaton. She is one of the financial advisors that we work with out of Baker Tilly. And we've been working with since 2000, late 2008, early 2009, back when it was Springstead, now Baker Tilly. And then the resolution materials that you have in the packet, those are coming from Sophia Leike, who is bond counsel in Kennedy and Graven, one of the individuals that works in Scott's group on the resolution. I'll let Terry cover all of her materials, and then I'll stand for questions if there's anything out of my memo that goes with it. So, Terry, it's yours.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, pleasure to be here this evening to talk about the next bond sale. So there are materials in the agenda. The resolution just authorizes the bond sale, and I'll go through a few of the pieces of information about the bond sale so that everybody can get a summary, and then we'll have questions at the end, anything we can help with in explaining it. So the project is, the bond size is $5,925,000. And that is for $5.4 million of it, $5,415,000 of it is for the large project in the middle of town, the Highway 19 Main Street project. And the other portion of it, about $510,000 of it, is a portion of the water and electric building expansion. The portion just related to water, there's a small general obligation water revenue bond that's part of the overall issue. And to save costs, we're combining them into one bond issue. The resolution would authorize the sale of these bonds on August 2nd. We would have a rating call on July 15th. And then on the evening of the second, we would bring the bids to you for approval. On the first page of a document that we submitted that says Baker Tilly, the one thing I'll point out is interest rates. You're at a 50-year low. These are gonna be some of the lowest interest rates again if markets stay. You know, the interest rates are what they are on the day of sale, but if interest rates hold, you can see the darker line on the bottom is, in the last 5 years, is at one of the lowest rates. And if we would put that in a subset of bonds over the last 20 years, these would be 5 of the years, the lowest years. So it's a good time to go out for bonds and get these issued. The bonds are, bonds have a call date, and the call date on these would be in anytime after 2030. So it's about 8.5 years from now you can call the bonds without penalty. The $5,145,000,000 improvement portion of these bonds are supported by special assessments. And in fact, that component of the bonds, the repayment comes 34.5% comes from assessments. 62% of it comes from the 3 utilities that you have, and only about 3.5% will be levied. And then the $510,000 portion, the water piece for the building, is 100% paid by water. So most of this comes from non-levy supported issues. The assessments will have a 15-year repayment, and the city's policy is to charge an interest rate to those paying assessments of 1.5% over the estimated interest rate. It will be the interest rate on the day of sale, but that is estimated to be about 2.979% is the interest rate that would be charged. And that's because our estimate, as I mentioned, is very low rates historically. 1.46% is our true interest cost estimate. The water funds are, and so just to issue those bonds, the approval can be done if you have at least 20% of those bonds paid for by assessments and you have over 30%. So they are very qualified as assessment bonds. The water utility is 100% paid by water, and that authorization comes from having adequate coverage. And in fact, you have 2.82 times coverage, so very strong coverage on that bond issue. And that is also a 15-year term for repayment. So I think all the terms for all the components of the bonds are also 15 years, but in the case of the stormwater, and this is related to the street project, that component that's being repaid from stormwater is only $120,000, and so that portion is only 10 years. But otherwise, everything else is a 15-year repayment. So that's the summary of the sale, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
No, we've been talking about it a long time, so it's nice that we're at this point, I think, so. Appreciate the work that you've done on this.
Oh, well, thank you. Your staff did an awful lot of work pulling a lot of numbers together, so they made it easy, easy to get here by the time we started structuring the bonds, but yes, thank you.
You're here so often, I thought you were part of the staff, so.
I feel like the staff, you guys are always
That's
very
good.
welcoming, so thank you.
All right. Any questions?
No.
Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve the resolution in front of you.
So moved.
Sean approves the motion, or the resolution. Makes a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion to approve Resolution 21-07-06-03.
All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you in a month.
Yes. All right, Mr. Johnson.
All right,
Something about-
in your packet is a model resolution that we were able to receive from the League of Minnesota Cities that they're recommending that we adopt pertaining to the American Rescue Plan Act funding. Attached to the memo I included in the resolution is the identification of the 4 statutory categories that the American Rescue Plan funds can be spent on. Our original preliminary notification is that we're expected to receive approximately about $940,000, but it could end up being slightly less than that when they are working on the final per capita estimates, and they actually apply that. City staff has been attempting to become knowledgeable of the various rules that have been developed by the U.S. Department of Treasury on this funding. This one seems almost a little bit more extensive than what we had with our previous funding that we worked so hard to get applied and spent last year under those rules and regulations. And both Patty and I, and I'm not sure if Ken has sat through
Not any of these.
but basically Patty and I have been trying to sit through and learn either through Baker Tilly or through the league's program, trying to understand the parameters and the outlines of where we might be able to spend funds. And so I included just a brief piece on kind of the back page of the materials out of the Treasury regulations that talks about the statutory eligible uses. And so we're trying to obtain additional clarifying information that we're gonna be able to come back with you and share with you kind of the outline of there is an expansion of what these 4 categories generally are, so that you know, we can have discussion that we're just in the early stages of trying to learn what all of the regulations are so that we understand it ourselves. And obviously, we're going through this transition where I will be leaving next month, and you've got somebody new coming in. And so we're trying to balance that with all of the other things and the other priorities that we've had prior to my exiting my position. And so we're, as I'm saying, is we're kind of in the learning stages with this and trying to gather additional clarifying information so that we can provide that to you so that you can begin doing some thinking and brainstorming and potential visioning. And so it's gonna take a fair amount of work with the staff trying to take a look at this, as well as giving it to you, and then whether we open that up again for other outside public input into the process as to how best that we can spend some of these funds. You know, obviously one of the bottom and one of the easiest ones is to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure that, you know, if we weren't really interested in looking at all the detail, we probably could come back with a sewer replacement project that we know, if you remember, for those of you that were here when we went through the detailed sanitary sewer study, that we've got some system improvements that are in need of repair and replacement long-term. You know, that could be a possibility, but we want to try to make sure that we give you information and clarification as to what are the types of things that can be done under these 4 respective areas. It can't be used to just simply reduce the local property tax, that it's very specific that Patty will have to set this up in what I term kind of a special revenue fund. And so these revenues, half is expected to be received here, I think sometime in the next 30 to 60 days. And then the other half would be coming a year from now. The funding has to be obligated by December 31 of 2024, but doesn't have to finally be spent until December 31 of 2026. So it's not like we gotta rush out and worry that we gotta get this done in the next 30 or 60 days. And so it will become important that I think you as elected officials and policymakers can get more information to understand under these statutory categories, what are the kinds of things that could be done, and you know, what interest do you see looking at the community and looking, you know, long-term or with some vision, what are the kinds of things that we think of that could possibly be done under these areas? That I'll be starting those discussions with staff, but obviously I won't be around to finish that. And so we're kind of in that early stage, and really is prudently something that the next person that follows me in would take the leadership with both the staff and the council to bring this process forward after I leave here this next month. And so we're in that early stage trying to figure out exactly what we're gonna, what we can bring back to you so that you can better understand the categories. And then with the staff attempting to do some visioning and then coming to interact with the council and having some of that same discussion, you know, before you ultimately have to decide where and how do you want to spend those monies. So it's like another federal grant to us, and, you know, we need to figure out what's the best way that we can expend those dollars and get the most bang for our money.
Okay. All right.
I appreciate your comments, Mike, about Patty bringing information to the council in the near future, and hopefully we'll kind of learn about it. And I know the resolution talks about recommendations, but I'm hoping that we, the council, can be better and much better informed before we start receiving recommendations.
Yeah, the intent is to kind of do it in a dual process, that we have to become educated, we need to educate you so that we're all in that same path of, and you know, but it also, I think, is our responsibility as staff is to figure out, based on our knowledge of the community and what needs, that we're able to bring some things to you to kind of show you, at least from the staff's guesstimation, what kinds of things could possibly be done under some of these areas. And in some cases, maybe there's no ideas, I don't know, but that's the process that has to unfold, and we need to give you enough information and clarification so that you've got a good way of evaluating, you know, what can be done under here. And obviously, it's gonna take some work with some of the things that are allowed underneath there. You know, whether you see that as a priority to ultimately try to develop a project within the scope under any one of those four distinct areas. And so it'll take a lot of interaction between staff and council. And then you might want to do some outreach to the public and see about getting some public input if that's where you choose to go in that part of the process. So it's really kind of open-ended at this point. I didn't give you all of the treasury regs. I can certainly direct you to the website, but I think the regs were about 72 pages in length, and so it's quite an educational undertaking, you know, in light of everything else that's going on, to now have to read and understand and work with, you know, the financial advisory people and the league to try to figure out what are the requirements, how do we proceed. And, you know, the big thing, I guess, in pointing out is that you don't have to act tomorrow, you don't have to act in 30 days, that we've got some time, so we need to do the prudent planning and policy discussion and, you know, figure out what are the laundry list of projects, and then be able to prioritize or pick from those projects at some point before you start entering into any contracts to do anything.
And if anybody wants to, you can look at the league has got, for those classes, they actually had the documents that were in the classes. And if anybody wants to take a look at them, then they were a lot clearer than what they were at the.
I can't remember, is Scale gonna be putting on something?
I'm sorry?
Is Scale gonna be putting on something, or have they?
There's a list of classes that they were gonna have
I
too.
saw that, I just couldn't remember if you remembered.
The scale classes are training classes for supervisors and employees. That's unrelated
It's
to
not
this.
council, okay.
No.
All right, that was my question.
Yeah, it's either county or city employees, and what the county does through the scale partnership is they make those available to all of the other cities within Scott County to participate in those training sessions that they put together.
Perfect.
Yeah, the league usually has webinars that you can attend, and
That one is out there, there is one on the website for the league's webinar on this.
On this, okay.
But I think the point that you're kind of making, I think, is for us to be able to understand what others are doing that affects our area, because we don't need to be doing something that Scott County's already gonna do with their money, because they're getting money as well.
pretty much all of the other cities in the county are going through the same process, that, what are the rules and regulations and what kinds of things can we do under the different categories and what brainstorming is occurring. And we've had collaboration with the other administrators and with the county is there anything that somebody sees that, depending on how it's done, and the county is asking us, is there any projects that might tie together with the city and the county that make sense? Because they've got a substantial amount of money is to be expended in the county as well, and so that dialogue is occurring.
Cool. Okay, I would take a motion to approve the resolution in front of you.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 21070604 to accept the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund established under the American Rescue Plan Act.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion by Maggie, seconded by Bruce. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, item number 7.
I know I don't quite look like Matt Rinda, but Matt is on vacation this week, and so I told him that I would take his 2 appointments that he's recommending, that I did work with Matt and Josh from in the Public Works area on the 2 appointments. And so these are the 2 vacancies that occurred ultimately when we moved Josh up from his position to the street supervisor, and then we also had a gentleman leave to fill the water position. That was Frank, and so then we backfilled to cover the half street and the half water, and it resulted in the 2 street maintenance positions. And so we did advertise, and in taking a look at it, he had 24 applications for the 2 positions, which in today's world and time, I thought was substantially less. That I think a number of years ago when we advertised for one, we had upwards of over 100 applications for one position. So it tells you that there has been a change in the marketplace, and so we were pleased that we had 24. We did the review with our T&E rating process, and then Matt and Josh from the Public Works Department, they interviewed 7 applicants and are recommending two individuals, Mr. Ross Pumper, who resides in New Prague, and you can see his background there. Has a substantial concrete background, which Matt is very excited about. He also has extensive tree removal and snow removal experience, as well as already having a Class A driver's license with air brakes, and so the only thing we need to get is his tanker endorsement within the next 6 months. So in taking a look at his experience and background and what it would take, you can see we are recommending him at pay grade 9, step 5 under the wage schedule. Everything else has been passed and is complete at this time. The second individual we have is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Anthony Anderson. He is also from New Prague, resides in New Prague. He currently works for the city of Prior Lakes in their Parks Department, where he's been since 2016. And as part of that, he's done extensive snow removal, concrete work, tree trimming, and bituminous repairs, as well as he also did landscaping for 6 years with the Steve Rinda Construction and Landscaping firm, where he operated various heavy equipment for residential and commercial landscaping, as well as plowing snow for residential and commercial. He does have a Class A driver's license with the air brakes and tanker, and we're recommending him at effectively a pay grade 9, step 7, and he's successfully passed all of his background tests and is being recommended for approval tonight as well.
Mike, why does Matt start everybody at higher steps? I mean, is that,
Well, part of this is you take a look at the experience that in taking a look at it, that where they're gainfully employed and we're trying to recruit and to bring them in is that, as you take a look at this, these aren't individuals or people that, have no experience, no skills, in the areas that we're talking about and looking at. So in that recruitment and negotiation process, to be able to try to get them, you know, there's a bit of back and forth with the applicant trying to bring them into our compensation system. And so you're seeing a step 7 and a step 5 on an 11-step system. And, you know, neither one of these individuals would have taken anything if we'd have tried to bring him in a step 2 or step 3 in that process, that they'd stay right where they're at and that we wouldn't have been able to bring them in at all. And so I was involved in working with Matt on that and, you know, the evaluation of where they're currently at in pay and where we thought we needed to go to try to get them, that these individuals were the top 2 on our list in the process. And so you make every effort to try to negotiate back and forth a little bit as to what they feel they need versus where we think that their skill level is at and what they bring to the organization, and to have, you know, their driver's license stuff and all of that, and the snow plowing and the concrete and the tree trimming, you know, all the things that we believe are necessary to be able to work in that street department position, and that we're not starting with somebody just fresh and young with no experience. And so I can tell you, I probably spent nearly 90 minutes to 2 hours with Matt on the debate on where we bring them in at, and you know, where do they fit in the compensation plan, and why do we think we need to go there, and where are they at, and what are they asking for, and where do we need to go. So I can tell you that I was extensively involved in that. So as you look at that, is that, you know, that just isn't just lay it on the table and here's where we think. That I do spend extensive time, whether it's in this department or any other department, trying to see where they logically should fit and what's the rationale and how does it compare to the experience that we have with people that are paid higher than that, and you know, do they bring a skill set that's of value to us, and how do we get them to join our organization to fill the vacancies that we have?
yeah, or we could train them, and we'd get somebody that maybe doesn't have the 26 years of experience and to save on staffing costs. As you know, one of my biggest things has been trying to hold down the number of employees and maintain an adequate level, and then watch the increase in that. So I'm glad that you told me that you spent considerable time doing it, and I appreciate that. I wanted to make sure that Matt understood that too, just as somebody that has to watch the taxpayer dollar, that
well, when you look at this, that we're with where they're starting at, they're below that. When you look at the positions that they are filling, we're at lower rates now than we were before.
Right, but in 5 years, they'll be at the max rate, you know. Well, certainly the one that was started at pay grade 7, and there's only 11 steps. So he'll be there very soon, and so really about a 5-year average, and they'll be right at the top pay level. So my feeling is that maybe we missed out on 5 years that we could have held wages down for positions that are, you know, just starting it out. So I just want to make sure somebody was looking at that and negotiating instead of just spending taxpayer money.
I always anticipate that you're going to ask those questions, and that's why I tried to be prepared to answer that. And you know, Matt came in with some preliminary recommendations and thoughts based on what was there. And like I said, is that I spent nearly 2 hours, you know, going over both of these and looking at their application materials and their work experiences, and you know, what is it they're looking for that. Yeah, we could sit down and say, okay, we'll start somebody with no experience. But you honestly, when you look at the fact that we've got all of 6 people that kind of make up that street department crew, is that it's nice to be able to turn people out on that equipment for plowing snow. It's a little different than running around in a pickup truck and, mowing or plowing a parking lot or a driveway, that when you look at those big, I don't know how many ton trucks those are. I never learned exactly what those are, but you put those big wings on those things and you put the plow in the front and you expect them to sand and to avoid hitting cars and mailboxes and that. You want somebody out there that's got experience in that. And, I just soon, when we try to bring people in to do this, that if they've got experience and capabilities, they need to get used to our equipment and that, but I'd rather not wait for 2 or 3 years for them to get up to speed and being able to do some of that. And Matt's quite excited with the one gentleman, Mr. Pumper, on what he brings to the department as far as his background in doing work as we take a look at curbs and sidewalks and other things on his specialty with concrete. Matt said we don't have anybody of that magnitude of background, and he's excited to have him as part of the crew to be able to lead in that area. And obviously the tree trimming, that that's a shared responsibility, but when you have people that have been trained in that area and know the safety protocols and go to do that, it takes a certain amount of expertise when you're dropping trees and doing that work. And I just soon have somebody with experience being able to do that versus somebody learning totally on the job that way. And so I think we bring a couple of good experienced individuals, albeit we've got them on different steps based on our recognition of what it takes to bring them in and where they should be on the pay plan.
I personally know Anthony Anderson. I work with him on the park board and have for a couple of years, and he is a terrific individual, very conscientious. He always comes prepared. He's always got recommendations, asks good questions, and I was thrilled to see his name as a recommendation.
Yeah, I'm not denying the fact that they bring a wealth of experience with them. The point is, I want to make sure that we're just not hiring, as I showed you just the other day at our meeting with the prospective new city managers. There's plenty of city councils that offer what they feel they can offer, and if they can't get the number one person, they move down the list. So I just want to make sure, and I think I heard that from Mike, that somebody's actively taking a hard look at it, and I'm not disparaging either one of the candidates. I think they offer a lot of information, or a lot of experience, but do we necessarily need to hire the absolute highest or one of the highest?
I think in the future, if we could have the discussion, in the future, if we have turnover, are we gonna be recruiting more on the entry-level side? But if we open it up for a full replacement, we're basically letting everyone apply with their experience. But if we advertise entry-level, then we're gonna be at the lower end of the scale, but we're not. But that probably needs some guidance from the city council if we're gonna want our departments to focus more in that area. But my question was your last comment, I think, and just for the sort of coming our back here, the difference between the two steps on the two individuals, there was a decision, or the point system brought an objective analysis why for the same position we're hiring someone at the same time and they're 2 steps different.
Well, let me explain that the training and experience rating sheet is the initial assessment of the applicants that we see. Number one, do they meet the minimum requirements to do the job? And then secondly is based on their experience, and we provide a supplemental questionnaire besides the normal questionnaire that we have for the position to help us ascertain the level, the degree of experience in being able to meet the primary job responsibilities within that. That rating assessment just ranks the candidates from 1 to 24, and then we cut it off and took the top 7 in for interviews. So that rating system is gone, and all that does is help us rank the top 7. In some cases, if we had more, is that we might have taken the the top 15 and done oral telephone interviews. And then from those interviews, we might have narrowed it down who we're gonna bring in for the face-to-face interviews. And depending on how that went, we could have even gone further with a second round of interviews for the top 3. In this case, because we had essentially so few, 24, we cut it off and we'd identified kind of the top 7, and there was a logical break in there. And so those 7 come in with, and they're all equal when they come into the interview process. And then so out of the interview process, then Matt and Josh each did their individual ratings and then came to the conclusion on kind of ranking those general 7 with the idea that their preference in offering the positions were to the top 2 individuals after the interviews. Kind of like you did, you know, with the city administrator candidates. You interviewed 3 and you had to pick 1. Well, in this case, they interviewed 7 and we had to pick 2, but they kind of reviewed and ranked them. And so the 2 that you have in front of you tonight, but taking a look at their backgrounds and the differences in there, and based on what they were currently working at and what they felt that they needed, that we saw the potential for a difference. And just like Sean asked the question, is that I could have brought them both in at the, you know, the step 7, but we didn't need to do that. And taking a look at that in the negotiations with the individuals for that, we're trying to fit within our plan based on what they want and where we think that they ought to be, based on experience and qualifications and
And that was my, trying to get an understanding, because I don't have, the information on the second candidate has less years of experience than the first one, but is a higher step, so I just wanted to understand the thought process that went in, and if it's objective or if we're just making a call based on possibly what they were making before, what it would take to hire them, and as long as we're staying on the right side of the law is all.
Part of that's trying to negotiate them out of their current positions and to be able to get them to move to come here and to be part of our organization. And so,
Okay.
as Maggie said, that, you know, his work on the park board, he's, if you approve this tonight and you do, I'm gonna have to call him and tell him that, he's gonna have to submit a resignation to the park board, because you can't be an employee and still be on a board or a commission. So that will be, and Ken would back that up, is that we're gonna lose a very valuable member on the park board. And yet that was a council decision probably 10 years ago, and going through and setting the requirements for boards and commissions, is that we didn't want employees of a particular department being on that board or commission. And so that's been a process that's been upheld since the council first originally adopted that back in, like I said, I think it was at least 10 years ago.
When we posted the position, did we give a salary range that included these steps, or did we just put out the starting?
We just gave a general range.
And what is that range that you put out? Is it step 1?
Yeah, it would have been step 1 to 11.
Oh, it is? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve the appointment of Ross Pumper and Anthony Anderson.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion by Maggie, seconded by Bruce, to approve the 2 gentlemen per the recommendations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Now, next on the agenda is the employment agreement with the new city administrator. Now, is Liza coming in, or are you gonna work this, Scott?
I don't think Liza's coming.
Okay. I don't think so.
No, I put it down with her name behind it because she was leading that process.
Correct.
Whether she has left that, I think, in the hands of Mayor, you and or
Yep.
Sean.
Yep,
As part
okay.
of the negotiating committee that was set up following your last special meeting last week.
Perfect. So the agreement, did everybody get a copy of the agreement that was presented? I don't know if the one tonight changed a lot from the one that we got in our packet.
There was not one in your packet.
Yeah.
There wasn't one here.
It was just an email.
You're right, we just had the memo. I
Yeah, you
apologize.
had a memo, and then, this was sent over Friday after we had discussion. It's the same version that came Friday that I believe you all received again today at some point. There is one typo that a couple people have called out, and I know Mandy did as well. There needs to be the word months inserted after, seventh line of paragraph 17. And then I know there were a few questions as well as, I think on the way down, when I was driving down, Eliza sent an email discussing a couple of items as well. I don't know, Mayor, if you were gonna hand it over.
Well, I think Sean and I will tag team on that, because they were questions of yours, Bruce. So.
Directed at Scott, yeah.
Directed at Scott.
I can answer those quickly. That's why I was saying, Bruce said that, but then I know you had some comments as well.
Yeah, I can't ask you guys, otherwise that'd be a, council meeting.
That's right.
I have to ask you.
They're very good. Very good.
Well, now you can ask away.
Now you can ask
Now
away.
you can ask away, cause we're.
You can ask all you want, but I can answer Bruce's questions very quickly, but then I think there is an additional discussion that Liza was pointing out as well. But Bruce, to your first question, you control, as a council, you control any review process whatsoever, no matter what we put in this agreement. And if it was a full 360 review, that's still, that review process coming back to you only as information to you with the ultimate decision maker on what you do or not do with any employee you have. So that doesn't get overridden because we put a 360 review process and timing in the contract. Council still controls that, absolutely. The other item is on number 2, you were talking about the adjustments, the discussions on pay, and I think that your negotiating team will discuss that further, but again, you have authority to do that. You have authority to deviate even if you have set steps in certain circumstances, and I believe that's what sort of happened here. You were working out a time frame and how you were responding to the negotiations back and forth with the candidate here. So again, council has full control over that one as well.
Is it clear to a reasonable person then that, or to Joshua, would be reading that the 360-degree performance review is not the review that would determine his salary?
Yeah, I don't, and I almost wanted to offer additional language there after your question, and I think maybe we should, because it really is, it's not only a 360 review, it's also a discussion process that you, council, have with the city administrator, and that can happen at any time beyond what you have in the contract as well. So yes, we probably should add a few statements or words in there that would clarify that it isn't only the 360, it is other give and take you have with the administrator, as well as you're gonna have goal-setting sessions and policy sessions that you're gonna tell the administrator what you 5 want accomplished, and that really isn't the 360 review process whatsoever. But it is a review of the administrator, whether they're getting done or not.
I guess when I mentioned it, I was thinking, so we could get feedback nicely from the department heads and stuff. That was the only
Yep.
reason I wanted it, because I didn't want it to be just the council or, from what we see up here and not taking in other feedback, or somebody's afraid to come to the council to say something, or, I got your point too about the disgruntled, you get a disgruntled employee, that could be a negative response, and if that was the only review, obviously that would be detrimental.
It's like talking to my wife, if she'd just understand what I mean instead of what I say.
These meetings are.
But that's what I'm just trying to get at here, is I
No,
think
and
it's clear what we're trying to get at. We want to benefit from the department head's
Yep.
viewpoint, but I just want to make sure that we're not misleading
Yeah.
our
No,
candidate.
if I could offer that second sentence of paragraph 4, I would say the employer and employee agree that reviews within the discretion of the city council, including but not limited to a 360-degree performance review, will be conducted on the employee. So you'd add in the capacity that you have And again, then you can decide if you really wanna do a 360 and 369, that may be overkill, but
Yeah.
the bottom line is, it gives you that absolute discretion. I don't know if that clarifies, Bruce, what you're talking about.
To me, that would be great.
And then eliminate the 369.
I think you could, because then you have the discretion to say, we're doing one at 6, or we're doing it at 9, whenever you 5 wanna do
Okay.
it. Yeah,
Or all of a sudden, we're gonna do one.
right, and it's at
Okay.
10.5 months, but you need to do it, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Let's do that because it's just, yeah, okay. I'd be good with taking that out, that 369.
Okay,
Maybe leave the 12 in there. And then, do we wanna do one at 18 months or do we wanna, let's see, 18 months would be a year and a half.
I would almost suggest that you don't need the 12 or 18, and I would say that will be conducted on the employee as determined by the council, but at least on an annual basis.
Yeah, it would be nice to get them in sync
Yep.
to that January 1.
Yes. Yep. Let's do it that way.
Well,
Are you okay with that, Sean?
Yeah, so what is that gonna do to our 6-month step increase and then our 12-month?
Oh, yeah, that's right. The 6-month step
You
increase
still
in 12.
control and can say, we're having a review because we're looking at a step increase at 6 months. So by doing this, it's still, you can say we're doing one at 6 months. It doesn't take that away by any means.
Okay.
But is Joshua expecting that, the 3 and 6, was that discussed?
It was discussed with him, but I don't think it's finalized with him.
Okay, so I was just
So-
curious
so-
if he would expect to see something in the
Yeah,
contract.
no, I didn't have any further discussions with Liza on that either, but she seemed to suggest in that email from tonight that it was sort of an open-ended question when the 360s would be. So I think it really answers your question that there is some discussion that can occur, but again, you 5 control it. You absolutely control when you want to do a review
Okay.
of your employee at any given
Because we'd
time.
have to create one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if it wasn't proposed to Joshua that, I think the way we had that worded was that upon a successful review at 6 months, he would move up to step 2. We would start him at step 1 because we thought he was still pretty green and had some experience. He came back and wanted to start at step 2. And we said, no, we want to start you at step 1, but we'll agree after 6 months.
Sean, to answer your question, the very next sentence I think really covers that.
Does it? Oh, okay,
Where
I'm
it
sorry.
talks about you'll have an increasing conversation, the employee dependent upon the results of, and it says I would just change the word to a 6-month and 12-month performance evaluation.
We have to list, though, that we offered step increases if he gets a successful, he might want to see that, is what I'm thinking, and I know personally I would.
Mike?
You could choose in that process that depending on what you see, you could do half a step or all of a step or whatever you want to in that process, that this gives you great latitude with the way Scott is proposing this language, is that it's just saying he's eligible for an increase in compensation depending upon the results at 6 and 12 months.
Right.
It's
Okay.
not saying exactly what that's going to be, so you have time to spend a little bit more to figure out, is that gonna be a full step increase? Is it part of a step increase? Because the other thing that really isn't identified in here is that needs to be put together, obviously in the early days of the new working relationship, is the identification of those projects, issues, and things that you want to see accomplished, that you identified in the recruitment profile, that's what you're gonna pull into, I presume, into working with him when he initially gets here, is what are the goals and the priorities and the working projects, so that he knows what he's gonna be evaluated at 6 months or 12 months, what's on that master list of items. The input from the 360 is just an assessment of how is he generally getting along with, the council as a whole, with the staff as a whole, and that feedback comes into it along with the evaluation of the progress on those other
Goals
activities and
and
projects to get to any kind of, review. This was the same kind of language as you probably saw in my contract when I came back in 2008, and Dwayne was on the council that agreed to that. And the council ended up shifting, I think, fairly quickly. I started in, July of, '08. I had a 6-month, and a 12-month. But basically, after that 12-month is that the council and myself worked to push it to an annual evaluation and an adjustment occurring on January 1 every year, so that it was kind of consistent where when you change the compensation plan, that there's the COLA increase that's in those different steps, and then whether the evaluation was sufficient to move me another step or not. And that's how we kind of transitioned it.
And that's what we wanted to do too. And that's what we had discussed, although we laid specific, I didn't even realize that you could do half steps or whatever that proportion is, but
I'm just saying, in looking at that, is you have discretion.
yeah, I just wanna make sure Liza didn't, present it to Joshua as Dwayne and I had explained to her that at 6 months, we wanted to move to step 2 upon a successful. But if this language handles it, and that's fine. I didn't know if the specifics needed to be in there, but it's.
I still think it gives you the discretion, and if she made that representation, then I think you'll probably follow it anyways, if that's where you're at. So I don't have an issue with the language, and I think this clarifies Bruce's question very well, but it also gets to the point, you've got the discretion to set those reviews up. And Mike's right, we could add another page or two to this agreement to get you to shift from here to an annual basis, but after 12 months, you can say, that's what we're doing, and everybody's gonna say, okay, good, we're doing that.
Yeah,
It's a waste of time to put the language in.
Okay, all right, I got you.
Okay.
Well, I'm not clear on that then, or I just wanna make sure I understand. We're talking about March 1st being the 6-month and March 1st of 2022 being the 12-month review, salary review.
Okay.
No, September 1st would be what his start date would be, the 12-month. So it'd be March and September. He started September, August 30th, but.
So we'd wanna get them, so
12-month review. Oh, I thought it was 12 months after the 6-month.
No.
no.
12 months, so a year in September
You're doing 2
1st,
salary adjustments within 12 months?
which he basically probably would have been at anyways, had we started him at step 2, but we backed it off and offered him
Step
the opportunity to step 1, we're gonna start him at,
Okay.
and then see step 2, and then at the end of the year, if we could, or at the end of the 12 months, which would be next September 1st, if we moved him to step 3, then our thought process was that he wouldn't get another one that next January. He'd go through January of '23 at step 3 and then get on to our regular employee, January of 2024.
Okay, I just wanted to understand how the dates on it, because I think this can be confusing. When we're not syncing it up automatically.
Yeah,
With
you're
our
doing,
current
really, Bruce, what you're doing is you're getting through 1 year here, and then this discretion of you when you shift to the annual basis or not.
Okay.
That's really what you got.
And I didn't realize until I went through this process that we don't have to have this position on the salary schedule. But I think our city has just done it that way. City administrators don't necessarily have to be on a salary schedule.
I don't, yeah,
And
I
there's
don't know
cities that-
any city that doesn't have them in their pay plan in some form as well. You're right, as a chief executive officer, for certain circumstances, you can do different things with it. And that's what Mike's somewhat referring to. You have still discretion within what you've set as parameters here. But yeah, that's correct. I don't have any of the 9 cities I deal with, everybody that's the clerk or the administrator is on the same pay plan in some form that we've used. You still, that might be true, but that still accounts for your pay equity and things like that, which is why you have to have them in a
Yes.
scale somewhere. So if you suddenly had something way off or way down, it would really throw off your pay equity reporting with the state. That's why most cities have it in there.
Yeah, I think either a candidate or somewhere during the process told me that
Yeah.
they either worked at a city or had one that it was just listed, but it wasn't on the schedule, and it does have to be part of the pay equity, but
Yeah.
their council or the council that
Yep.
they're referring to just made a decision.
No,
And it may have followed the schedule or may have been higher or lower, but.
No, and I understand that, and again, that's what I'm trying to say, you do have discretion here, and you're exercising that, Mike talked about a half step, things like that. You know, that's really what we're getting at here, is you have that discretion with this staff member.
And that's why putting the word step one in it almost refers that we're gonna follow the steps, but.
Well,
We could take that out. We could just say the employee salary.
well, the bottom line is, you're at step one, that's what your
Yeah.
step one for this position
Yep,
is,
that
so
too.
whatever you go after that is up to you.
Yep. Okay.
I just
I understand.
overly cautious because of Liza's, email when she's referring to his concern about COLA increases. Well, he's very much reading into our salary schedule and is concerned about it following it. So that's where,
Okay.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
so I just,
And then I'm not sure he maybe necessarily understands how that works, and I could say that if you start him out at step one here, even though you won't do his 6-month review until give or take March 1, is that come January 1, if you adjust the pay plan 2% or 2.5%, his step one would go up that 2 or 2.5% automatically. And then your review is then, are you going to move him another step when you get your review process?
Yep.
So the COLA does kick in automatically as of the first of the year, wherever you're at on the compensation plan. Whether you go further than just that COLA increase, ends up being the review process and the evaluation that you would go through to determine whether you move another step.
Just as a little side, you brought up a good question that I wanted to ask Scott. Do we, if we offer COLA increases, do we have to offer those uniform across the board, or could you theoretically say, or not even COLA, but just increases in general, or?
Yeah. It wouldn't be the norm to not do them in some uniformity, but theoretically, yes, you could. And again, keeping in mind that can impact your pay equity and things like that later. So there's other factors that militate somewhat against trying to differentiate, but the reality is, in cities that have a number of union contracts, you can have very differing things that are happening there, and then you've got to figure it out and make it all work. And it complicates it if you don't keep it somewhat close to the same, let's put it that way.
Well, the only reason I ask is because obviously 3% means a lot more to somebody making 125,000 versus somebody that's making 50.
Absolutely.
And that pay gap is getting much wider at the top end than it is from the bottom end, and I'd like to see that bottom end kind of move more closer.
Yep.
So, so theoretically, we could
Yes.
take a look at that.
Yeah, you certainly can.
With the understanding that we still have to be very cognizant.
You gotta be
of the-
cognizant, but that gets to Bruce's point, that
Okay.
you may be able to move differently with an administrator than you can with other employers.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you have any?
Nope, not at all.
Okay. Rick?
No,
Okay. I would take a motion to approve this employment agreement with Joshua Tetzloff with the notations that we talked about.
So moved?
Maggie made the motion. Is there a second?
second.
There's a motion, a second. Rick made the second. Any other discussion?
so was it determined, Liza's comment about the COLA thing? And are you satisfied that we addressed Liza's?
Yeah, I think we told her. What did we tell her? No, or it would be.
It would be up, she said, don't muddy it up in the weeds.
She recommended not adding language in, which I would concur
That's
with.
exactly, yes, that's exactly
So there'd be
right.
no change for the COLA.
Yep.
Thank you.
Cause he wanted that in, that's what it was.
Right, and we're saying no.
And no, yeah.
So, Dwayne, do I understand the motion and the second that's on the floor is to approve the agreement with the changes to section 4 as are being recommended by Scott, as well as the change in adding months in paragraph for section 17.
Correct.
Yes.
No other changes.
No other changes.
With the start date of August 30th.
Okay, now that, yes, with the starting date of August 30th. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, consent agenda.
I found a,
Oop. What?
I found a spot that we gotta talk about on the meetings.
Oh,
Minutes.
so you wanna pull the minutes?
Well, we don't necessarily,
Or, no, just
we need
go-
to make a correction, then we can
Yep.
probably do it all in one.
Nope, go ahead.
The minutes from Tuesday, June 29th. Bottom, it says after discussion, motion by Wolf, second by Bass to approve Mayor Nicolai and Councilmember Ryan as members of the employment. So unless you've been replaced so soon, it needs to be Mayor Jurek.
Thanks for the confidence.
Gotta be the internet or something.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thing that needs to be, otherwise I'd take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Sean and Maggie, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, I'm gonna call on those two gentlemen. That's you guys. Come up here and tell us who you are and what you're doing.
And thank you for your patience. It's
Yes.
been a long meeting.
I am a Boy Scout, and he is also.
Do you guys have names?
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm Kyle McCarthy,
I'm Ethan Schatz.
Okay,
and we're doing merit badges. I'm doing communication.
I'm doing communication and citizenship in the community.
okay,
Very nice.
very good. So,
Normally, we have someone do a little play at the end to close out the meeting. Take them doing that then? A reenactment of something?
Or sing a song or.
Song and dance, yeah. Did you need anything from us?
No, I got all the information. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, good luck to you.
yes. Thanks for coming.
Before you guys leave, can I get the correct spellings on your names to make sure that I can get them?
They will be noted in the official minutes of tonight's council meeting. So go over and tell Mr. Johnson your names and spell them out for him.
And if you watch on
Please.
YouTube, you'll see yourselves on TV.
McCarthy, MC.
I got a new word to play with.
Hmm?
I got a new word to play with. Militate. That came straight from the attorney.
Militate.
Yep.
Did you hear that, Scott?
I didn't.
I'm gonna use that militate thing.
Oh, I know, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go around the horn. Rick?
No,
Bruce? Today I had a quick tour of the new Hy-Vee store.
Nice.
And that liquor store is massive in there.
it's the first place you check.
I'm just seeing.
Spend most of your time there?
No, I will not. But it's a nice store. They're stocking the shelves right now. They're still hiring people. But I had a nice tour of it, so.
I actually came to join you.
Opportunity for
My wife agrees with you.
I did come to join you on that one too, and I got to the front door, and it was like all these machines went running by me, and it was like, this isn't a good place for me. I'm out of here.
So, that's all I had. Sean?
I just want, have we ended the Emergency Powers Act for the cities yet, or for New Prague? Officially?
Not yet,
You shouldn't have, yeah.
Okay,
but I was gonna bring it up in my miscellaneous that we should do the resolution at our next meeting.
okay, all right. Perfect. That was all I had.
Maggie?
Yes, so this weekend, being the 4th of July weekend, the fireworks in the city were horrendous. Reading the police report, there were several calls. I personally experienced extremely loud explosions. Clearly, the fireworks are not legal in the state of Minnesota. And I would like to look into passing an ordinance that fireworks, unless they're a sponsored event, are not allowed within the city limits of New Prague. I realize that there's this, they are against the law in the state of Minnesota, which applies to us, but it would be an added level of communication to our citizens. My concern is for those individuals that potentially have PTSD, and these explosions are extremely concerning. We have, I know of a young man, a young boy, I should say, who has some issues and has to wear sound canceling devices whenever there are explosions. And obviously, the animals in our city, the barking was intensive, even in our neighborhood. I think it uses city resources, the police officers, in a way that maybe takes them away from other responsibilities or other patrol areas. So just something I would like to explore. I think it really needs to be brought out in the open that this just can't be tolerated. And I'm sure that there's some noise ordinance out there as well that is violating when it goes well after 10 o'clock at night. So I don't know if we can take a look at what other local cities might be doing, just to kind of get a feel if there's been any other dialogue out there.
Sure. Can I ask a quick question? I noticed there was a trailer down there selling fireworks. How was that?
Those were just the
Yeah,
legal ones.
if they're legal, yeah, you can sell them.
Sparklers and
Ground displays or
Yeah.
whatever they call them.
nothing that launches.
Minnesota legal.
Right.
Is that something that you can do, Ken or Jim?
Yeah, by the council's direction, I can look into some options for ordinances or what you'd like to include and come back and report back to you.
And generally, as you've dealt with in the past, one council member brings that up to instruct staff to spend staff time doing the research and putting together planning. Where does that fall in the line of the things that are currently going on? And is that something that the whole entire council wants us to spend time on? So it's Maggie's recommendation to you that she'd like to see this done. The question is the council supportive of wanting to do that? Or what's your thoughts as it relates to staff spending any time on this?
I'd be interested in knowing more information, maybe not spending the time of drawing up the ordinance yet, but understand how have you been enforcing the existing laws? Because we're not creating new restrictions, I don't think you're talking about, but basically overlapping state law then. And so it's really a question we're not enforcing or we're not able to enforce what's already out there, is what I'm hearing.
That seems to be the case, and one of the problems, I believe, is that, let's say you hear an explosion somewhere, you can't vector it in as to specifically where it is. You can give a general area. By the time a patrol car is out there, maybe that person is gone inside, or, there's no evidence that there has been anything lit and exploded. But I think it just maybe sends another message out there. We can publish it in the newspaper, publish it in our newsletters, that we just feel that it's dangerous. It takes away people's rights of their pleasure of their property. It can affect people negatively, so there's a lot of downside. And even this past weekend, it could have set off some fires because how dry it was out there. And that's not every year. But I just wanted to understand, if any other cities, around us are experiencing the same issues. I just find it's extreme nuisance for no reason at all. If it's a sponsored event, I'm fine with that, but.
Well, I would agree with it. I just wonder what's the best way of trying to get the outcome that you're trying to achieve there.
Yeah, I realize it's kind of a
if we pass an ordinance and it's not going to be enforced any differently than it is now, then it's only the communication that's going to be the benefit. of it. And have we ever had a conviction for someone in New Prague?
We've issued some citations to problem residents that we've warned not to do it, and they continue to do it, or on the same night, they may go back out and set them off. Normally, when we respond, to a noise complaint, we're gonna respond to the area, listen for them, try to focus in on where they're coming from, and then approach the residents and talk with the individuals there. There has been times where like a whole cul-de-sac was out of residents and we approach and we get booed and taunted, but we say, hey, you can't blow them off here, and try and give them a warning. When we return because of another complaint, then a few or a half hour later or something, then we would try and identify where they're people it off and issue that homeowner a citation if they possess them. Yeah, we've had some citations issued. Normally it ends with a verbal warning, telling them, hey, it's late at night, they're not lawful fireworks, put them away. If they're present when we're there, we would probably confiscate them if they're not legal in Minnesota. But a lot of times people may keep them in their garage or whatever, out of sight, and just do one or two at a time. But I know, I spoke with Maggie earlier in the meeting, or prior to the meeting, and yeah, the last couple of years, we've gotten numerous reports of them, even to the degree that on the southwest part of town, or southeast, individuals had gone all last summer and the previous summer, every once in a while, they would light off a big cannon type sounder. Sporadically, no real time, but it sounds like a transformer's blowing up. It's a loud bang. We tried to identify that with neighbors and things. We were unable to do that, so sometimes it is difficult. This morning I got a phone call from an elderly lady that was just horrified by him on Sunday night on the 4th, that they were loud. 10 o'clock, she called again at 10:22, complaining about them, that they sounded like they were gonna hit her house. So we talked about that, and that she still needs to call. She wondered why nobody came to her door and talked to her. Dispatch took her information as refused complainant, so we didn't have that information in our instance. So yeah, we get calls. Our response is to respond to the area and try and determine who is lighting the fireworks off. Initially, we'll do a verbal warning. If that doesn't seem to remedy the problem, we would issue a citation then.
Cause I know sometimes it sounds like it's right next to our house, but it's just how everything bounces and the wind and, yeah, but I understand too, because that was a point we did with our son. He was gonna handle the 4th of July okay, because he's out in Virginia and he came back from Iraq and they were rocket and missile attacked, and, you know, was he gonna be okay? And he thought he was, but, you know, it's a definite concern out there nowadays. And I think we forget about that, or we don't care about it. And
I think, yeah, it just sends a message that the city's just not going to tolerate it.
Yeah.
You know, and we can only do what we can do, and I know your officers are doing a great job, because one of the officers even responded to my husband calling in and trying to help vector them in and where the explosions were occurring, but it affects a lot more.
Yep.
So are we going to, do you want us to decide to have him look into more, or?
Yeah, well, you know, in July 4th, you know, is going to come around again in a year, so it's not something that I don't think is imminent that needs to be looked into, but I'm just be interested to know if any other cities have any similar ordinance or language.
I would support that.
And definitely education piece, like the newsletter and doing, social media, and maybe we can get Patrick to do an article about it somehow.
Thank you.
Mike?
My only, point of, interaction is that, I was trying to make sure that we have the bond issue, process, understanding that the sale date will be August 2nd, and, we should have funds around the 1st of September, so that process is underway. Condemnation, I'm working with an attorney in Scott's office that, we're talking this week that, I'm guessing that we're gonna have condemnation, jury convenes sometime in August. I don't know the exact date yet, because it had to be moved from July, into August, due to one of the commissioners not being able to attend. We've got 6 that are up for, that process. We're hoping that we might be able to settle a couple, 2 or 3, before we actually go in, so it may only end up being 2 or 3 that we end up in the condemnation process here in August. Any of the outcomes and what we have to pay, that all gets reimbursed to us by MnDOT. So we're in charge of the process. We have to convene. We interact with MnDOT on the values and the negotiations and what's going on, so that we're interactive with their real estate staff and the project staff as we hopefully get to the conclusion. And that's my hope, is to have that done and laid to rest before I leave. And so we've been working hard at that. And then the third piece related to the highway project is getting all the submittals of the legal bills that we've incurred related to the acquisition of the temporary easements and the condemnation work. And so those are the 3 components that I've personally been involved with, and working with Patty, trying to make sure that we have done and off the table, so that we don't have to encumber my replacement having to pick up any of those pieces, being somewhat unfamiliar with that. But saying that as well, looking ahead, is that I will not be at the next council meeting here in June on the 19th, as well as the first meeting in August. Recall from my past discussions with you, is that I will be out of the office on an extended vacation that had been planned earlier this year, prior to me, or about the time I was submitting my resignation. And so I'll be out of state. My recommendation is that I can in charge of the day-to-day and handling any inquiries, and him leading the next 2 agenda processes in that. And so he would be the one that I would appoint, kind of backfill and to cover during my absence. And then I would be back on August 9th, and have 2 weeks to clean out my desk and get things in order, and done on Friday the 20th. So that's kind of what I've got in my remaining weeks here. And looks like you've got an appointment beginning August 30th, so basically you've got a week in between, just about is all. So 6 months notice that I gave you back in February
Sure went quick.
just about worked as I anticipated it would be needed to. So that's all I have.
Okay. Scott?
Yeah, nothing beyond the 2 items tonight that we'll follow up on and work with staff and finalize both those items as best we can.
Okay. Mr. Andich?
Nothing more.
Okay. Chief?
Nothing more.
Okay.
Jim, were you going to bring up the smoke shop?
Oh, yes.
What?
Just another ordinance issue. With the council's direction, I would look into, well, we're gonna look at updating our parking ordinance regarding semis. We question whether or not semis need to park on the road. I would like, the council to give feedback on that whether they're in an industrial area or in a commercial area, other than loading and unloading, do we necessarily need semis parked on our roads? So we would look at that and possibly look at changing our ordinance to incorporate that change. And taking away some of the lighter business areas.
Right.
That they wouldn't, well, if we look at it that way, then we wouldn't have an issue with semis parking anywhere on our streets. Because we're just taking that out, that option. And again, if somebody pulls into an alley or along the businesses and are unloading a semi, that is part of business, that's what happens. They don't need to be parked there by our ordinance, it allows parking for 48 hours on a street. So that's what we want to avoid.
Would that push it into residential areas?
Not at all,
No.
no.
Okay.
They already cannot do that.
Okay, thank you.
So are you suggesting that we get a designated area then, or?
Well, I think, with, private businesses, private enterprises that are offering parking for semis is an option for them if they need to park someplace. The other thing is they can become property owners and park a semi on their property.
And then the other item was with the smoke shop.
Smoke shops would, yeah, the other issue is we'll take a look at, sorry. We'll take a look at, updating our tobacco ordinance. I believe we updated it to the degree that it's compliant with the state statute now. But, I would also entertain if the council would approve adding our smoke shops to not allow them to sell other paraphernalia non-tobacco related. Some of the officers have gone into them and they are selling pipes that are readily used for smoking meth. They're just a glass bubble pipe that they are utilized to smoke meth in. They're on a shelf behind the counter, so the public doesn't have access to them, but they are selling them. They sell them as incense burners. But we know what they're used for, and I know a lot of ordinances, a lot of cities have ordinances that just don't allow that. That if it's not related to their tobacco license that you issued for them to operate their business, then they don't need to sell other items that are non-related. I can look at updating that also and presenting that to you. If you agree with it, then we could go through the reading.
I'm good with that, yeah.
Yes.
Now I believe that's all I have.
Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. 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 Thanks, everyone.